welcome back. Let us talk on global biogeography. So, when we hear this term biogeography, that means perhaps the biotic system or the biota follows the geographical pattern as far as the globe is concerned, or the global distribution is concerned. So, with respect to that, let us have the discussion on global biogeography, particularly the major types of terrestrial biomes. So, we are restricting our discussion in today's class on the terrestrial biomes and the growth limiting factors and ecosystem carbon storage biomes and including all forest and natural vegetation. So, this pattern of biome distribution in terms of the biogeography, I want to discuss first. So, here this is shown between 90 to 90. So, 90 degree south to 90 degree north latitude, south latitude to north latitude in y axis, and in terms of x axis it is between 180 to 180. So, whole globe has been put here. So, as far as the distribution is concerned, we have so 0 degree used to be the equator. At 23½ we have the Tropic of Cancer, and we have the Arctic Circle and Tropic of Capricorn around 66.6. So, 1/3, 1/3 and 1/3 we have the division. But in the other context, because of the tilt and the rotation it makes around the sun and on its own axis, the at 23½, that means over Tropic of Cancer, the Earth's surface receives maximum solar radiation. So, that is because a gift of the tilt. So, here what we understood, that we can divide it across the latitudinal space into tropics, into temperate and the alpine or Arctic. So, between temperate and tropics, I would say between tropics and temperate, we have a zone, intermediate zone called subtropics. Between temperate to alpine, we have another intermediate zone called the subalpine. So, these tropics are tropical, subtropical, temperate, then subalpine and alpine. These zone or zoning systems also corroborates with the vegetation distribution pattern. You have different forest, we say the natural vegetation moving from following a pattern that we call the biogeographical pattern on either direction of the equator, north to south. If you see along the equator at 0 degree, we have all tropical dense forest along that equatorial belt. Broadly, if we take plus or minus 30 or plus or minus 25 to be little bit precise. So, around that we have all the tropical dense broad good forest. So, the moment I say good forest means they have the optimal structural representation. What do we mean by optical structural representation? They have a 3, 4 or 5 tier vegetation. You have a tall canopy, then you have medium, then you have the scrub, the bushes, then you have the annuals, and you have a cripple layer also, the lianas. So, from left to right if we go, we have the Amazons, we have the African Congo Basin, the tropical forest, we also have the Western Ghats forest, and also we have the South Asian forest. So, these are very structurally optimal representation they have. So, if we have structurally optimal, that means we have very good forest structure. It helps or it leads to optimal functional what you say performance. So, what does mean by the functional performance of a biome or a plant system or a vegetation system? It helps in sequestering the atmospheric carbon dioxide. In this day of warming era or warming world, we need the CO2 withdrawal by the process of photosynthesis, and that is done very well by this forest. If you have a good structure, you have good water availability all through, you have good representation of leaf area index, you have good chlorophyll concentration, then they will do optimal photosynthesis. So, these tropical forests, they do optical photosynthesis. So, because all these factors which are required for photosynthesis are optimal, but only thing is that during summer season or during some part of the year, the water or the moisture availability becomes little bit constrained, that affects or that leads to little bit lowering of the photosynthesis. Otherwise, all other parameters are available plenty. We have good temperature, we have good precipitation availability, we have good leaf availability, chlorophyll pigments availability, everything broadly. So, then as we move from tropics to pole on either direction, the complexity of the vegetation structure goes on decreasing. That means, it is a simple structure. So, towards equator towards alpine areas, you have the grasslands, you have only 1 or 2 species found there, but here in tropics, in Amazon, you have hundreds, thousands of species. Go to Himalaya, you have hundreds, thousands of species. This South Asian forest, the Congo basin, we have lot of diversity. So, diversity means diversity also have been hypothesized to encourage productivity. So, higher the maximum diversity, optimal productivity. So, because they also function in terms of a complementary principle. We will know them when we discuss more about the biogeography. But the point what I am trying to argue here is that the geographical distribution pattern of the plants is explained, or of the biota is explained by the term biogeography. And now, let us have a look at the types of biomes or the plant system or ecosystems which are present. We have tropical deciduous forest, we have tropical evergreen forest, we have temperate deciduous forest, temperate evergreen forest, boreal deciduous forest, boreal evergreen forest, mixed forest, tundra, polar forest, savanna, grasslands, scrublands, and you have deserts. So, in the last lecture, in fourth lecture, we discussed about the evergreen and rain green or the deciduous. So, we have two types based on the phenology. Either all through the year you have the leaf called evergreen, or it is rain dependent, or you say the rain green or deciduous type of vegetation or the forest. So, this is what explains the corroborative behavior of biota distribution according to as per the geography. Geography means broadly we are saying it with respect to our latitudinal variation and also the longitudinal variation. Friends, the latitudinal pattern of biome distribution is more prominent, whereas we also have seen lot of longitudinal pattern also are being followed by these biomes or the plant or the biota system. But as far as the prominence is concerned and the theory and hypothesis which are more proven is in the context of the latitudinal gradient, which is also corroborative of elevation or altitudinal gradient. Friends, in case of India, we have almost all the types of vegetation except alpine forest. We have the alpine vegetation, alpine grasslands. Because of the presence of Himalaya, because of the Himalaya presence, we get the elevation which mirrors the latitude. So, we call it elevation mirrors the latitude. So, that is why we get along the elevation gradient the tropical, subtropical, temperate, subalpine and also alpine grasslands or vegetation, they are over Indian territory. So, this is what is dominantly we understand as the biogeographical distribution. Now, let us move on to how they are regulated or a function of the temperature and precipitation. Friends, this distribution of plants, we are talking here about the plant formations, the annual mean temperature, annual precipitation have been plotted in y and x axis respectively in the left hand diagram. So, on the left hand side, the annual precipitation in terms of millimeter represent up to 4500, and on the x axis the mean annual temperature is represented between -15 to plus 30 degree centigrade. So, 0 to 4500 millimeter precipitation on y axis, 30 to minus 15 degree centigrade in terms of mean annual temperature. And look at this, on what range or within which range different types of the biomes or biotic systems or ecosystems they exist or they occur. So, if you see here the thorn scrub savanna. So, this is at a relatively high annual mean and low annual precipitation, and with the same range of about 18 to 30 degree centigrade of mean annual temperature. If there is little availability of a little more availability of precipitation between say 1300 to about 25 or 26,000 millimeter, then we have the presence of tropical seasonal forest, and beyond that, if more availability of precipitation is there within this temperature availability range, then we are having tropical rainforest. So, this is a good correlation and classification taking two prime or two main variables which represent the climate as far as temperature and precipitation is concerned. Then within -5 to plus 18 degree, we have the woodland, scrubs, grasslands. We have between 0 up to 18 degree, or it is a 2 to 18 degree centigrade, but if the rainfall availability is around 1300 to 2700, then we have the temperate forest. So, it is a function of, or you can classify or categorize them as far as the temperature and precipitation availability. Look at the desert availability. All the deserts have been put under very low precipitation criteria. So, -15 to 30, and at -15 your precipitation availability is very slow, maybe less than 100 millimeter per year at an annual scale, whereas the some of the deserts which are in the what do you say, higher temperature availability range up to 30, they have very less precipitation, maximum 450 or 500 per annum, because lot of evaporation will be there. So, this category is no vegetation, that means the desert areas. So, what I mean to say, based on this, the whole area, the whole terrestrial area over the earth surface can be categorized based on only the mean annual temperature and precipitation availability. So, warm wet rainforest, less rain and temperature savanna and forest, broad sense. Drier scrubs and grasslands, cold moderate rain, then boreal or alpine, and very cold dry, we say tundra kind of vegetation. Now, the DI, that is the dryness index. Dryness index can be calculated in terms of net radiation upon latent heat of evaporation into annual precipitation. This reflects the moisture stress on ecosystems governing the biomass distribution or productivity. So, low DI, that means wet biomass tundra, high index dry biomass deserts, and it varies spatially due to climate, topography and seasonal variations. And the right hand side diagram takes two other variables. One is the annual net radiation and on x axis it is the radiative dryness index, and accordingly also this set of biomes has been reconfigured and what you say replaced, or they have placed rearranged, I am sorry, rearranged. So, on the y axis the annual net radiation in terms of watts per meter square is represented up to 140, whereas on the x axis the radiative dryness index is represented till or up to 3.5, and you can see towards the right hand side the deserts and the semi deserts they appear, and on the left hand side all our major tropical forest systems they appear. So, this is what is the relationship between the two means two variables, particularly the radiation parameter is concerned. So, what we mean to say, the distribution of biomes, the distribution of biota, this is what we say that the is corroborating with the geographical space is explained by the term biogeography. Now, another very important classification given by Holdridge. So, this on x axis it is in taking the mean annual biotemperature, potential ET, evapotranspiration ratio has been put here, and annual precipitation on x axis and y axis and y prime axis. In x axis they have been categorized based on these parameters as superarid, perarid, arid, semi-arid, subhumid, humid, and super and semi-arid again perhumid. So, on this basis, on the y axis, if we see here the tropical region is between about up to 32 as far as the temperature is there, and it goes up to 16. So, I would put it other around 16 degree to 32 degree as far as the mean annual biotemperature is concerned. So, within this we have the warm the tropical, and 16 to 24 we have the warm, temperate or the subtropical. I will repeat 24 to 32 degree centigrade with mean annual biotemperature we have. There we talked about mean annual air temperature. Here we have just talking about the biotemperature, and there between 24 to 32 is the tropical, 16 to 24 is the warm, temperate and subtropical, 8 to 12 is the cool, temperate, 3 to 6 is the boreal, and 1.3 to 3 is the subpolar, and less than that is the polar. On the other side, on y prime axis, it is shown also in terms of the elevation. So, as all of us understand in terms of the lapse rate, as we move off in a longitudinal scale or a longitudinal step along the elevation gradient, we see that every 1 kilometer about 6 degree centigrade fall in the temperature. So, this side on the y axis 24, 12, 6, 3, 1.5 degree centigrade mark is also mentioned there. So, lower mountain this that they are all related to this, and corroborated annual precipitation also shown. So, what it means that that at the lower elevation we have relatively higher precipitation, and as we go up and go up we have receipt of lower precipitation. So, it was very well put forth and given in form a pictures Q and a related various variable format by Holdridge in terms of the natural vegetation classification that integrates the temperature, the potential evapotranspiration, the precipitation and also the elevation, which is also corroborated with the latitudinal variation. So, these factors this also adds humidity, regional things, regional variation, altitude as the markers, classifies global vegetation into life zones useful for tropical and subtropical ecosystem classification. So, let us move on to the next important understanding, that is on global climatic constraints. So, global climatic constraints on NPP. Why we need to discuss on this? Before that, let us see, this is the pattern. As you understood, across the globe we have the distribution distribution of different vegetation systems, and different vegetation systems, they vary as far as their structural and functional components is concerned. So, here we are going to talk about the functional component. The important functional component we all discuss as far as the plant system is concerned or the ecosystem is concerned is productivity, the primary productivity, the net primary productivity, the gross primary productivity, and through the mechanism of photosynthesis. Water limits 40%, temperature limits 33%, and radiation limits 27% of growth. So, water, temperature, radiation, if optimal, then productivity is highest. So, this has been worked by the people from University of Montana at Missoula, and they put this team, particularly by Steve Running and his team has brought out this in the journal Bioscience for the first time, which also have been re-reprinted by Banana et al. In his book, maybe with permission. And then what this particular understanding says, this particular thing says that if you look at the Australia, look at the upper part of the Africa, then it will be very clear. It is clear that the constraint in productivity in this region is water availability. So, other around, had there been more water availability, then these places productivity would have been higher. Productivity would have been higher. Now, let us look at over the Amazon region. There it is shown green, radiation. So that means you have everything available. You have sunlight available. You have water, moisture presence in heavy. You have the Amazon forest system, river system there. You have lot of structural component in terms of tree vegetation, the leaf area index, chlorophyll, everything, but there radiation. So, that means tropics is having maximum radiation, but it says that if still more radiation can be available, this system can produce or can synthesize more of the atmospheric carbon dioxide. But more importantly, let us move on to the other parts of the world. So, if we see the northern polar region, there it is blue or a cyan kind of marking. So, this blue or cyan represents that here the productivity is controlled or regulated by the temperature. So, that means most of the period of the year the optimal temperature is not available. So, if optimal temperature is not available, or you say the temperature is less than the optimum temperature, then a lot of the enzymatic activities will not happen. So, photosynthesis process will stop, in turn the ecosystem productivity will hamper. So, this particular slide represents that in the biogeographic scale, the function of or the functional contribution or the productivity contribution is limited by the climate variables, and these climate variables 3 which are shown here in terms of radiation, water and temperature. So, this is the climate variables also have corroborated in terms of the functional aspect as far as the biogeography is concerned. It is really beautiful. And now, let us take a look at the major terrestrial biomes and the carbon pools. Friends, because of this variation, because of this constraint in terms of the structural, in terms of the geographical, in terms of their functional variations, the various forests will definitely have different amount or different quantity of carbon synthesis or carbon sequestration. So, the tropical forest, the temperate forest, the croplands, the wetlands, they will have different amount of carbon sequestration which we measure in terms of the productivity, or you say the net productivity in terms of the petagrams of carbon per year has been shown in this particular table. So, tropical forest is the largest storage of carbon in plants and measured by the carbon density and the stock. Now, let us have a look at the distribution as far as the Indian biogeography is concerned. It is not the Indian biogeography I am representing here. In this is one of the studies has been published by Roy et al. With several authors, and then what this team has done. This team has tried to put or tried to divide the vegetation or try to classify the natural vegetation into several classes using satellite data. So, this is 100 classes have been represented there with lot of field based survey validation, and it says that you have you can use satellite data with lot of ground confidence or ground verification and go up to a community level classification, which then can be discussed or can be taken as far as the PFT plant functional type based consideration as far as the function is concerned. So, you have a structural distribution of different forest types coming from the satellite based reflectance corroborated with the field or ground based control points or validation points or the sample data, and then you come out with a map that talks about the vegetation type distribution. So, this is the vegetation type distribution map shown before you, and it is used for several reasons. It can be used for a change detection, how much of the shift in that particular ecosystem or distribution of that particular plant system is there. It can be analyzed in terms of different biogeography, their occurrence in different biogeography, and importantly the corroborative analysis as far as the temperature variation is concerned, the precipitation variation is concerned, the temperature and precipitation anomaly is concerned. We have already done this kind of analysis here and tried to just put over those contours. You can see some lines dotted isohyets have been put in terms of the red and blue. The red represents the isohyets as far as the temperature is concerned, temperature anomaly contours, and the blue represents the precipitation anomaly contours. And it is very important to understand that various systems are have experienced or have been experiencing different range of precipitation and temperature variation or anomaly. But the next is till how long, how much they can tolerate, or what is their capacity or resilience limit. So, these are the questions which is answered in terms of the climate risk analysis, in terms of their climate resilience, in terms of the threshold and limit, all these things are concerned. So, in general we discussed about the biogeography studies in terms of the global ecosystem distribution, and we understood the environmental controls. Particularly, we have taken 3 important variables: the precipitation, the temperature, the solar radiation, and also the potential evapotranspiration, the 4th one, and try to understand the distribution of different system across the world. And it is regarded, or it is explained, or it is understood in terms of the biogeography. And we also found that since the tropics have a structural diversity in terms of vegetation, more vegetation is present, all other conditions are available in optimal. That is why tropics are more diverse and also hold most of the carbon in terms of vegetation carbon. Thank you very much for attending this lecture.